turned out to a major legal battle for the Trump administration, the president's renewed push to limit birthright citizenship. A federal judge in Maryland declined to immediately block the implementation of an executive order that President Trump signed earlier this year. That order would restrict automatic citizenship for children born to adults working for foreign embassies. It would also block automatic citizenship for groups considered an alien enemy of the U.S. The president signed that order weeks after the Supreme Court rejected his initial attempt to limit birthright citizenship, an order that he signed on his first day in office. NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley joins me now to talk more about this. So, Julia, the judge refused to block the president's executive order immediately, but did she give any indication of how she may rule on this going into the future?
Yeah, it does not seem like it's going to be a permanent win for the White House here. What the judge was saying was just that these plaintiffs who decided to bring their challenge to the executive order under the same lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court, that they need to actually file a separate lawsuit because this is a different executive order. So it's really more of a procedural ruling here. From what the judge was saying today, it seems she really doesn't think that what the president is trying to do through this more limited slice to limit birthright citizenship is really going to pass the muster. After all, the Supreme Court already said birthright citizenship is enshrined in the Constitution, and the only way to change that is to go through Congress.
And it felt like they were pretty clear about that. I mean, is there any reason to believe that this new working of this executive order will have any different response by the courts?
No, I mean, in some ways, we already have limits for children of diplomats. You can ask that of anyone who's an ambassador or working in any kind of diplomatic office here. Their children are not U.S. citizens, and they know that coming here. They're trying to say that people born to alien enemies also don't have that, and they can designate, as we've seen, like gangs like MS-13, say that they should also not have citizenship. But there's a woman who is already being brought up as a potential class member in this case who would be able to show that she's been hurt by this if it does go into effect. So it's a matter of DOJ getting the guidance on how it would be implemented from the White House, and then these plaintiffs filing again in a different lawsuit. But either way, it doesn't seem like the path is going toward Trump actually getting what he wants here.
There's another thing that the Trump administration wants, and that's robotic dogs.
Oh, yeah.
They spend $1 million to do this, and then we're talking about ICE here. What's this all about?
Yeah, that came across my desk today. It was a little bit of a surprise on a Friday to hear about robotic dogs. You can see them here. This is called Spot. It is built by a company called Boston Dynamics, and we saw in a federal database that ICE is actually offering to pay between $1 and $2 million to buy these things. And when I talked to a senior DHS official about how they would be used, they said that they can have cameras and sensors on them so they could go into a building or a house or anywhere that ICE wants to go in. They could go in before an ICE officer does to make sure it's safe. They can detect for chemicals or any other thing that might be dangerous. I asked specifically, could these be used in force? Could there be some kind of weapon attached to it? They said they have no plans for that at this time. But there's a lot of outrage over things like this because civil liberties activists think that robotics and policing really eliminates the human element that might cause someone to stop before they result in catastrophic damage.
I think we all saw the movie RoboCop.
Yeah.
And how that ended.
I missed that. You'll have to recap it for me.
Okay, all right, Julia, thank you for that.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.